Former President Donald Trump is still holding a press conference at his golf club in New Jersey right now. This is his second time speaking to reporters in a week. He said Vice President Harris's economic policies are causing a catastrophe. He's expected to take questions from reporters soon. He's been speaking for about 20 minutes, but has not started taking questions yet. Instead, he has been using this time to deliver what he billed as economic remarks, but really he's been using that framework of the economy to make a series of untrue claims about his opponent, Kamala Harris. For instance, he said that she wants to turn America into a communist country. He said she wants to get rid of private health care, and he said she wants to abolish coal, oil, and natural gas. None of that is true. He has also been making a series of over-the-top claims, including that Kamala Harris broke the economy, broke the world, destroys everything she touches, and that there will be a 1929-style crash if she is elected. So that gives you a little bit of a flavor of what we've been listening to so far. Let's now take a listen to see what he's talking about now.
Had no way of getting them back. And I said, I want to get all of the MS-13 in particular out of our country, bring them back to where they came from. A general said, sir, that won't be possible. Why? Because they blocked the airports, they blocked the roads, they blocked everything. You can't do it. I said, so they're making a concerted effort? Yes, sir, they're making a concerted effort. We can't do it. They put planes on the runway so we can't land the planes, sir. And the same thing with the roads. They block up the roads. So if we have buses coming in, they block up the roads. They're totally blocked, and they're terrible. It's been that way for years, sir, all the way back to Bush. It's been that way for years. And I said, well, how much do we pay them in terms of economic development and aid? Sir, we pay them $750 million. I said, that's okay. Call them immediately and tell them we're not paying them anymore. And the following morning, I got a call from the three main culprits. Sir, I'd like to speak to you because I don't understand what the problem is. I said, well, you've sent us gang members, and they send them. Remember that. They send them. They said, you send us gang members, you send us killers, and you send us drug dealers, and you send us horrible people, and when we want to bring them back to your country, you won't accept them. And that's under President Obama and all the way through. And therefore, you're in default. You are in total default of the money that we send you. And we're not going to send you the money anymore. You're not getting any of the $750 million and more. We're not giving you.
So you've been listening to former President Donald Trump at his golf club in Bedminster, New Jersey, talking there about immigration. We'll go back to him if and when he starts taking questions. But for now, I want to bring in our CBS News political director, Gómez. Finn, thanks so much for being here. Tell me a little bit about the strategy of having the former president hold two news conferences in a week, neither in a battleground state, not on the campaign trail, but first at his home in Florida, Mar-a-Lago, and now at his golf club in Bedminster. What is the goal with these press conferences?
I'm being told that this is an attempt to focus on the issues and try to contrast where they are on their platform, what they, meaning the Trump campaign, the former president in the Trump campaign, versus Vice President Harris, especially with her speech today with President Biden on lowering prescription drug prices, but also on ahead of tomorrow's speech in North Carolina, where the Democratic nominee is going to set as you know, a speech outlining her economic policies, right? And I think this is an attempt, after several bad weeks of headlines on the Trump side, where he was really attacking, the crowd, the sizes of their crowds, attacking her race, attacking her intelligence, to focus more on issues that they think are central to really showcasing that contrast between the two campaigns.
You can really see in his remarks the war that is going on between what he would prefer to talk about and what the entire Republican Party would like him to talk about, and is saying very loudly. They want him to talk about the economy. They feel like they've got the upper hand on that issue. He wants to go after Kamala Harris. And so what you see is him doing both. He is talking about economic issues to some extent. He's talking about inflation, but then he gets into these personal attacks that Republicans, by and large, seem to agree are not going to be helpful to him.
Right, absolutely. I think that's something that, and that's something you've seen also in the most recent polling that we've seen this past week, even before this past week, where Harris has really moved up. We've seen her really generating a lot of momentum, not only nationally in these national polls that we've seen, but also in these key battleground states. So 7 battleground states, and so they essentially are saying that they have to do something. People close to Trump are saying that he has to do something to sort of change the dynamic. I think it's interesting also that today is also the day that he announced some members of his 2016 campaign are now joining back into his campaign, including Corey Lewandowski, his former co-campaign manager in 2016, who, interestingly enough, Nancy said today, let Trump be Trump, which again goes against the recent criticism and advice he's been getting from those close to him now in the campaign. So it'll be interesting to see which Trump we see in the next couple weeks.
Right. What does it say about the state of the campaign that Corey Lewandowski is being brought back into the fold? And what, if anything, does it mean for the people who are currently at the top of the campaign? Could they be on their way out?
Look, there's been a lot of chatter about that, about some of those folks surrounding Trump now. Look, he has said publicly that he's not looking to make any changes, but we have seen criticism coming from the right, from the MAGA base towards some of those top leadership, those in the top campaign leadership positions. And it is extremely notable to me that Corey Lewandowski, again, not only Corey Lewandowski, but Taylor Budowich, who came from the Super PAC, who's also a bit of a flamethrower himself, and more aligned with that MAGA base. So will Trump be more MAGA Trump, or will it be this sort of disciplined Trump that we've been hearing about in the early part of this cycle?
So this is maybe Trump pushing back on all those voices he's hearing who are saying, hey, we need you to tone it down. That's obviously just not him. Right.
And if you recall, like before any significant staffing change when he was at the White House, it always was precipitated by, not precipitated, but you always heard essentially him defending that person before that person was eventually let go.
Yeah, that's a good point. Good reminder. Finn, stand by, because we're going to want to talk to you again after the president takes questions there in Bedminster, former president. But for now, switching gears, Vice President Harris made her first appearance with President Biden since he dropped out of the race today. Willie James Inman joins us now from the White House to talk about that. Okay, Willie, Harris and Biden spoke about these new drug prices in front of a raucous crowd. These are the prices that have been negotiated by Medicare to bring certain drug prices down for seniors. Talk about this issue and how important it is to her campaign.
Hey there, Nancy. Well, 10 drugs in total were negotiated by the Biden administration to bring those prices down for consumers. I'll note that this doesn't go into effect, those new prices, rather, until 2026. But the Biden administration celebrating this move in something that they have been working on for quite some time. In fact, officials and Vice President Kamala Harris herself talked about that tie-breaking vote to bring about the Inflation Reduction Act, which the president signed into law that put this proposal and put this policy in place. And this is part of Vice President Harris's campaign as well. In fact, tomorrow, as Finn said, she's going to lay out some economic policies that would also include reducing those prices for prescription drugs, groceries. She's going to talk about food, those things that are simply too high, cost too much for many Americans across this country. She's going to go after the food industry, the grocery industry, also meat processors are something that she's going to talk about, empowering the FTC to essentially monitor all of this price gouging going on and these mergers and acquisitions. That's something that she's going to put forward in terms of a 100-day plan for an administration, a Harris administration, if she were to win the election.
Willie, when I was watching the event this afternoon, it really did feel like a changing of the guard. You had Vice President Harris speaking first, the president standing behind her. Now that they have held this event, which was the first since he dropped out of the race, how much more should we expect to see Biden on the campaign trail?
Yeah, I think your assessment, Nancy, is spot on. I mean, you saw these two candidates standing side by side on the stage there, holding hands, raising their hands, like this was a political moment. Although this was a White House official event, it very much sounded like a rally. I mean, they were greeted by not only those supporters in the room where they spoke, but they went to an overflow room to talk with several supporters there at the event. I anticipate we will see the president on the campaign trail. In fact, he addressed this earlier this week. He talked about visiting the state of Pennsylvania, which is really key to a Harris victory. He talked about touring the state with Governor Josh Shapiro there, who was also on the short list to be the vice president's running mate. He didn't, of course, make the final pick, but still, nonetheless, the president says he will campaign in the state of Pennsylvania or wherever else the vice president will have him campaign in other states. But the Harris campaign really hasn't given much in terms of where we can see them on the campaign trail or where President Biden will campaign. But he certainly has put himself out there, not only with this event, this White House official event, but saying that he will visit the battleground state of Pennsylvania soon to campaign for the vice president, Nancy.
Interesting. And the vice president will be back on the road tomorrow in North Carolina. Willie, James Inman, Gómez, thanks so much. We'll be talking to you soon.